This is a book that I've been writing, and it's called Passport, and this is the very beginning of the book. When Jimmy died, we were given explicit instructions, myself, Headlight, Dental, and Mother, to use the money he left us to travel the world. The lawyer reached out with 2 debit cards and a bank statement. Mother, being the closest, took it. "And his ashes?" I asked. I figured we'd be tasked with spreading our best friend over as many continents as the debit cards could support. "For sale," the lawyer said. "For fuck's sake," Mother said. He stamped his foot, stood up, but there was nowhere to go. The edges of his eyelids were coral-colored, but the rest of him was paler than ever. He lifted his arms in the air, let his hands slap down against the thighs of his jeans. He dropped back into a seat and put his hands through what was left of his hair. It had been chopped to a skim surface of blonde since his mother's breast cancer. And he said, "Breath cancer." That's called halitosis. It had been chopped to a skim surface of blonde since his mother's breast cancer, and he said he'd wear it that way until she went into full remission, which she still hadn't. The lawyer said, "Mr. Williams has requested that his ashes be sold. In his will, he wrote that his ashes serve as..." The lawyer paused, lifted the letter, and quoted it directly. "His ashes serve as the final piece of my narcissism-based show by request to my epitaph. The highest bidder will have the right to spread my ashes however they see fit." "Jesus," Mother said. "What I don't get," I said, "is where the fuck did this living will come from? How did he have a will? He was 29, 30, Mother corrected. 30 then!" The lawyer pointed out that Jimmy had been regularly writing letters for a future art installation in which he cataloged his belongings and willed them to people. They were all titled, "In the Event of My Dying," followed by a date. His family said they wouldn't contest the legality of the letters as long as they be kept private after this reading of the final letter, which was dated last week. "And where the fuck is his family?" I said. I felt agitated, my upset making its way out in the form of accusation. No one was to blame, but that wasn't going to stop me. They requested a separate reading later this afternoon. "How much?" Dental asked. The lawyer looked puzzled. No one knew what he was talking about. "For the ashes." Mother and I shot one another a look, turned to look at him. We both knew where this was going. It was typical Dental, a question drizzled with fake concern backed by a snaky, ulterior motive rife with self-interest. "What?" he said, the always accused. "I just think maybe don't say it." I cut him off. I figured out that he was about to make a faux heroic play to spend our journey money on Jimmy's dust. It would curtail any chances of a lengthy trip, make Dental look caring and humanitarian, and hurry him back to his lame fuck San Francisco existence with his lame fuck girlfriend. In life, Jimmy would have done anything for us. He was freakishly loyal to his friends, and it was our turn to repay that loyalty by honoring his scribbled wishes. "Just hear me out," Dental said. "No," I said. Dental wasn't the best friend of Jimmy's by far. If there was an order amongst us, he'd finish last. Mother and I were the top 2, and Headlight was a clear, beloved third. In the last couple of years, Dental wasn't even close. It was strange that he was here at all. "Let me say what I want." I stood up, a threat. I wasn't strong, I wasn't hulking. A string being a half inch over 6 feet, a ridiculously slim 150 pounds. But at that moment, I was powered by rare certainty. I was right, Dental was wrong. He held up his hands in an okay, calm down sort of way. "The bidding for the ashes started at $200,000, the lawyer said. Dental's eyes bugged and his jaws slacked. Mine probably did too. I sat back down and looked at Mother. As his widened eyes slimmed, I could see a bubble of disbelieving laughter was making its way to his surface, and I beat him to it with one of my trademark one-note laughs, a quick, pierce, "Ha!" Mother covered his mouth, and to kill off a laughing fit, I thought of Jimmy dead. His face flopped into an open, empty pizza box in his living room, crust dust pressing into his dead cheeks, shirtless, his wide stress-induced back acne facing the ceiling, barefoot, $600 suit pants rolled once at the ankle. They quieted me. Mother saw the darkness cover my face, and his seriousness followed suit. "So where are we supposed to go on this trip?" Dental asked. "There are no specifics," the lawyer said. But based on what he's written, the phrase, travel the world, it seems to me that as long as you're off U.S. soil, you'd be honoring his wishes. Lisbon, Dintle asked us. I shrugged, nodded at Mother. Prague, Mother said weakly, then cleared his throat. And Lisbon, Dintle said, or Rome? Mother chooses, I said. Mother, who lived in London, was a beacon for our past travels, pointing the way towards a strange city we'd never heard of, or barely. Then we'd do crack internet research days before arrival, find hotels or cafes or restaurants that sounded funny, or were named after private punchlines. For this trip, I cared where we went. I was stuck in Brooklyn, living on a literary magazine editor's shit salary, and could suddenly afford to go to places that I daydreamed about. Beijing, Tel Aviv, Belgrade. Rome and Lisbon weren't my first choices, but I was happy to go there. But I wasn't going to say so, and sighed with Dintle. Why do you get to choose? Dintle asked Mother, whine in his voice. Mother shrugged like it wasn't his doing, that him choosing was out of his control. But the 2-to-1 vote made it official. Mother was steering our trip ship now that Jimmy was dead. When Jimmy was alive, he was up for everything. My tax shyster brother would finagle me a sizable tax return, and the day it was in the bank, I'd be on the phone with Mother arranging a 4-day meetup in Stockholm. I'd post it on my Twitter feed, and a call would come in from Jimmy within an hour. That familiar old-school telephone ring that was programmed to happen when Jimmy or Mother or Headlight came calling. And he'd be on the other end of the line telling me that he was going to go with us. Mother never did, but at first I believed him, and trip after trip, Jimmy was the odd man out. The artwork at his Chelsea opening only sold 2 pieces instead of the 40 he put up, or the $5,000 he said he was owed for a weekend job only netted him a comparably skimpy $800. It was delusion on repeat. He was always getting fucked over on money at weekend or week-long gigs. His excellent aesthetic, words scribbled onto plywood paintings that had made hidden references to his closest friends, meant his art shows were hits in the New York Times, many write-ups in Art Forum, but it never translated to sales. To me, it was cosmic. Nothing he ever did translated to money. He was one of the hardest workers I'd ever met in any field, but it never added up to paid rent or a series of worry-free meals. Once I got a free work-related trip to London, and Jimmy promised this time he was going to go. But there was no apology or relenting when the date was days away and he didn't have a ticket. Mother and I feared he might get one last second, knowing his empty wallet would be our concern. We relaxed when he told me via G-Chat, I think I'm going to use frequent flyer miles. It was so obviously too late for miles, and Jimmy only had 22,000. Then boom. His latest show, amidst a baffling dementia in which he told me he was repeatedly seeing and arguing with ghosts, was a ridiculous success. It infuriated him when I called him the next Basquiat at parties, but that's where he fit into my limited art scope, and the New York Times, Art Forum, and a slew of other magazines agreed, with one blog referring to him as an alarmingly potent evolution of the greatest text-based artist ever. As much as I made fun of him when he'd torn a page out of a porn magazine, painted one of the butt cheeks a light gray and put it in a show for $800, or put 2 identical James Taylor album covers side by side for twice that, both sold. It all sold. The Morning Peter painting that so vaguely referred to a YouTube video Mother had repeatedly watched in our presence 6 years ago, AETOF, a hilarious mocking of one of our co-friends who spent the space under his name in Gmail to leave lame musings like an early touch of fall, and the envelopes that I truly, honestly loved, so much that I put them in one of my magazine's issues for 700 people to see. My favorite one being the one that in the return address section read, I want you to smile once, then where the address should go, on my behalf. Money poured in and the value of his pieces skyrocketed, sold instantly through the struggling Bowery Art Gallery that showcased gay artist after gay artist, and on a whim, Jimmy. It was more than overnight success. He was, within 72 hours, privy to $168,000. Our friend, the never-do-well, was by his standards, and clearly ours. He hadn't had a bank account for 11 years because there was never money to put into it. Rich. Thank you.